Hi everyone, my name is Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the books that I want to read in the month of December. It's already December. I haven't actually really started reading anything, just listening to a book, but I have quite a hefty list of books that I want to get to this month and potentially bleed into January. This I'm calling my priority list. It's kind of a random list of books, but I really want to get to them for various reasons that I'll talk about with each book. The first book that I want to get to is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a classic. The main reason why I want to get to it is because I haven't read a lot of classics. The movie came out on Netflix about a month or two ago, and I'm a big believer in reading the book before watching the movie, and so I really want to get to it. I know that this is kind of a mystery, gothic, haunted house. There's kind of those vibes. I don't really know much else about the book and I don't want to know. I'd rather just go into the book kind of not knowing what it's about and seeing if I like it, but this is definitely on the top of my priority list. Next, I have Normal People by Sally Rooney. I know that this book has very mixed reviews. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think it's just kind of like a weird romance with some, coming of age and like teens going into adulthood and an on-again, off-again relationship. It's set in Ireland. I'm sort of going in with low expectations on this book, but it's super short, and the reason why it's on my list versus not even, I still want to read it because it's so hyped, even though maybe I shouldn't, but I'm actually borrowing this book from a friend of mine, so it's on the top of my priority list because I have this weird thing that if I'm borrowing something from someone, I want to try to give it back as soon as possible. So I'm borrowing this book and I want to give it back to her by the end of the year. So that's why I want to get to it. But it's really short, so I feel like that won't be an issue to try to read it quickly. And then next I have Room by Emma Donoghue. I'm also borrowing this book from the same friend as Normal People, so it's on my priority list for that reason. I'm borrowing it, I want to read it and give it back. I've already watched the movie, so I'm kind of bummed that I got to see the movie, even though it's a great movie. I'm bummed that I didn't get to read this first. I watched it long enough ago that I remember what happens, but I don't remember all of the details, so I'm excited to get into the book. But this is told from a child's perspective, or written from a child's perspective, about a boy who grows up in like child abduction. Like his mom gets kidnapped and she gives birth to him, and all he knows is this room that they are trapped in, and it's his world and how she's trying to teach him and all the different objects in this room, and he creates this somewhat imaginary world of his life because that's all he knows is this one singular room. Keeping with the same trend of borrowing and needing to return, I have The Orphans Tale by Pam Jenoff. I am also borrowing this book from my sister-in-law. They live in Montana and they're going to be in town for the holidays, so my goal is to give this back to her by Christmas Day. So I now have 22 days to give this back to her. This is a World War II historical fiction about a girl who's forced to give up her baby to the Nazis, and then she happens to find a train car filled with Jewish babies headed to a concentration camp, and I believe she tries to save them all. And then she joins a refugee like German circus and learns circus things. It's sort of random. Very intrigued about where this story goes. So that's on the list. Next, I have two books from the library that I put on hold a while ago and are ready for checkout now. I don't necessarily want to read these this month, but because they're available from the library, they're now put on my priority list. I do want to get to them, so I might as well read them now because they're available. The first one is The Secrets We Kept by Lara Prescott. The reason I heard about this book is because it's part of Reese Witherspoon's book club, and I mentioned in a previous video that I'm Russian and that I'm quite drawn to any books that have to do with Russia or Soviet Russia or the Cold War or etc. This is about two women who become CIA spies during the Cold War. I know this is based on a true story. That's kind of all I need to know. I think it's a little bit of historical fiction, it's a little bit of thriller, it's a little bit of mystery, there's some spies, there's Russia stuff. I have quite high hopes for this book, so I'm actually quite excited to read it, even though it's a little bit chunky, but I'm excited about this one. And the second book that I'm actually going to get from the library today is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I actually don't know anything about this book except that it's a thriller. There's a TV show on HBO that I want to watch, hence why I want to read the book first. I enjoyed Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, so high hopes for maybe enjoying this one. I've seen it recommended, I believe, by Noelle Gallagher on YouTube. We'll see. I don't know anything about the premise, and I kind of like going into thrillers blind sometimes. Speaking of thrillers, I have The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I've yet to read this one. It's quite a popular, highly rated thriller. The movie was supposed to come out this year. I think it's pushed to next year. This has moved to the top of my priority list because the movie looks very interesting and I want to make sure I read the book first. This is about a woman who's agoraphobic, never leaves her house, is afraid of leaving her house, and has some mental issues. She befriends her neighbor, and then she starts kind of watching and spying on her neighbor, and then all of a sudden she sees, I think, her neighbor being murdered or something happened to her, and she's trying to like unravel this mystery, and I'm assuming will be forced to leave her house. I'm gonna be honest though, this list is getting quite large, so I don't know if I'll be able to get to this one this month, but if not December, definitely January. And this next section of books are books that I have already started and want to or need to finish by the end of this month or maybe January, and they're all nonfiction books. The first book I'm actually listening to on audio is A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I really enjoyed Becoming by Michelle Obama earlier this year, so I thought I would listen to this one too. It's really hefty. It's a 30-hour audiobook, which is quite large, and I'm only about 30% of the way through, so I really gotta buckle down and listen to it. It's really good so far. It's quite heavy on politics. Obama's really going through his whole political career and very in-depth about his political career, stuff that I'm very unfamiliar with. But he also is such a good storyteller, and I feel like, you know, I could listen to his voice all day long. It's very soothing and eloquent, and even though it's a little bit out of my comfort zone with heavy political topics, it's still quite intriguing. So I'm really enjoying that, and hopefully we'll finish by December before the audiobook has to get returned. And then I have Killers of the Flower Moon by David Graham. I started this book, I got about 40 pages in and then moved on to a different book because I was picking this book up for orange cover for a readathon, and this was a little bit of a, not the easiest, swiftest read because it's a history book, history biography book, but I want to get to it. It's still a very interesting book and highly rated, and I want to finish it, so hopefully this month or maybe January. Also, I saw that this might become a movie or TV series with Leonardo DiCaprio in it, so that's kind of interesting. And then I have Love Does by Bob Goff. This I am reading with my husband. We like reading books together out loud, so we're going through this one together before bed. We are making slow progress, partly because my husband is currently working out of state, so we don't get to see each other during the week all the time. So we're really only reading this on weekend nights, but this is a Christian nonfiction, Bob Goff's life story, and really his whole point is that love is an action. Love isn't just words or a feeling, and he tells pretty crazy adventures and stories and things that have happened in his life, and he always brings them back to God and God's love, and then also just how those actions have impacted kind of people around him. So far, I'm enjoying it. It's interesting. It's kind of like a fun, quick little story. So we're about 80 pages in. Hopefully we get through this in December or soon. And last, but also least, I was gonna say last but not least, but kind of least, The Immune System Recovery Plan by Susan Bloom. Me and my husband are also reading this book out loud together before bed, but it got so boring, we're almost exactly halfway, that we sort of stopped and moved on to other books. But I still really want to finish this because I just kind of want to get through it and be done with it. I'm so far have never DNF'd a book before, and maybe it's the time to start, but I don't know, I also paid for this and I want to finish it. The reason why we're reading this is because my husband has an autoimmune disease, and we were recommended this book from some friends who are into like the natural health remedies rather than Western medicine. And I'm all for that. I've had really good success with naturopaths and whatnot. But this book is, first of all, doesn't talk about the specific autoimmune condition that my husband has. This talks more about celiac and thyroid conditions. So if you have one of those, maybe this will be a lot more applicable and helpful for you. But it overall mostly goes through what you eat and how that affects your immune system, which is important. And there's some still good stuff in here. It's just not written in the best way. It's not my favorite book, and it's kind of boring to get through, but I still want to finish it, so hopefully we'll finish by the end of this year. And then I have one honorable mention. Because of this very large list, I doubt that I will get to it, but I really, really, really want to read Little Women. This is a cutest little edition that I got earlier this year, and I absolutely love the movie, so I know the story, so it's not like crucial that I get to this book, but this is such like a wintry, Christmassy, fun book that I really want to get to it in December/January, but I don't think I will. If I will, that would be great, but we'll see. All right, that wraps up all the books that I want to read in the next month or two. It's kind of a random list, but I'm excited about most of these books, and we'll see what happens. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye!